On our panel today, we have Maxine Emery, a security manager in Vancouver, Simone Guthrie, a safety officer for Central Canada in Calgary, and Shannon Myles, a senior client service manager in Toronto. Welcome, ladies.
Hi.
You.
So why don't you guys tell me a little bit about each of yourselves? Simone, let's start with you.
So I'm Simone. I've been with Paladin 4 years now. I actually started in Ontario, moved out to Calgary spring of 2022, and I'm a mother of 2 teenage daughters.
Nice. Shannon, how about yourself?
So I'm going on to my 11th year with Paladin. So done quite a few different roles. But as of 2021, I'm a mother of 1. So just
Congratulations.
Back and forth. So work's been great. Just being back just over 6 months now.
Wow. I'm going to have to ask you a little bit more about that in the future, because I know it must be pretty challenging. But Maxine, what about you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So my name is Maxine. I've been with Paladin for about 7 years now. I'm currently working as a security manager. And I would say my favorite pastime is to watch live sports.
Ooh, I have that in common with you. What's your favorite sport?
Rugby.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Did you ever play?
I did. I played for about 8 years. I'm actually going to the Rugby Sevens this weekend.
So much fun. Are you going to be dressing up?
Yes.
Yes.
We have a group going.
Good. Okay. So let's just dive right into this. I want to start with leadership and management styles. Maxine, when I talked to you last week or so, you were telling me about how you don't take on a masculine role with your leadership style. Can you just kind of expand on that a little bit?
Absolutely. As we had talked about, I think that it's important to recognize where we excel and celebrate those differences. And I think part of that is understanding that just because I work in a job that's predominantly male oriented or more masculine energy in terms of, the way we work, doesn't mean that's how I have to operate. And I find that sometimes using those differences can actually help me get further than if I were to try and portray something that doesn't necessarily represent who I am.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Simone or Shannon? Do you find that it's something that you maybe felt pressure to do at the beginning of your careers or even still now, or how do you kind of handle that?
I'm a never. I'm 100% with Maxine on that one. I think we have superpowers as women, and why not tap into that? I think it's taken quite some time for it to be recognized. Of course, there's still going to be gender biases within a corporate world, especially a male-dominated world. But the more it's not even speaking out, the more we show what we're capable of, I think they're starting to see that. And I think, just kind of tapping into what Maxine said, I'm going to be me through and through. There's nobody else I know how to be. And I think that's what gets us recognized, is staying true to that. I think once you start, dabbling outside of that realm and trying to tap into more of that masculine energy, it's where, sure, we can adopt that, but it will take over. And I don't think it's genuine to who we truly are. So
I think you're right. Like, it's tough too. Like you got to be yourself. And I think it's reminding your staff too. I look at situations. Each person is unique in my team, depending on the site too. But they all have their different angles. Sometimes somebody that's in a difficult position that we're attending for a call, it could be a difference of it doesn't even have to be gender. It could be their background, ethnicity. Just having a diverse team, you can really look at everybody and see in some conversations that I could have, somebody could take negatively, but maybe one of my other coworkers, they're going to have a different angle or be able to share some common ground with that person and de-escalate a situation. So I think you're right. Stay to who you are, but use everybody. Make sure that everybody's strengths are kind of seen in that.
For sure. Simone, you said superpowers. So what is your superpower?
I'd say for all women, it's multitasking. We have this expectation. There is this expectation that is put upon us that we have to kind of hit every single job there is on this planet. You know, we have to be a teacher, we have to be a chef, we have to be, you know, extremely nurturing, so we have to be a nurse, you know what I mean? Like, you know, and add every single title to that. And I think that's been put and placed upon us, and at the end of the day, we do it. We do it, no questions asked. We do it with no pay, and we do it, and I think we succeed to the best of our abilities. Of course, not everybody is meant to be nurturing, you know, even though they say that women have that maternal instinct. I mean, that's a very large paintbrush to be painting across every single woman that's out there. But I think when you put us into that role, we will come out on top. It may not be the best of the best, but we will find a way to make it happen. And so that's what I feel our superpower is throughout. So that translates, it's transferable to the corporate world, to the work environment as well. Put us in any situation, we'll be able to handle that.
And I guess, Maxine, do you find that when you have, say, someone new coming to site, and they're a female, do you find that you train, I don't want to say that you train women and men differently, because obviously everyone receives the same training, but do you feel that there's any kind of difference that, because women do have these, you know, quote unquote superpowers?
Yeah, definitely. I think that when it comes to training new staff, especially seeing a lot more women working in our field, I think it's something that we should recognize. I think it's something that we shouldn't just ignore and try and, you know, like Simone said, that, you know, play this role that doesn't fit with us. And I think when it comes to working with other women, it's important to say, like, I see you, I recognize you, and I see the hard work that you're doing, because that would have helped me so much, you know, working throughout the years, when I didn't necessarily always have that person to look up to. So I try to be that support and leader for them to say, you can do it as well.
There's so many different types of leadership and mentors that we have. They just hold kind of a different role. I would never put one specifically on a pedestal and say they shine well above everybody else. It's just a different component. And I think it ties into as well, we're touching on, do we ever emulate what the men in this, you know, this world do? And I don't think it's emulating. I think it's we're being more so like chameleons. We're shape-shifting a little bit more. We're adapting to our environment. And I mean, I believe that Shannon can speak on this as well as Maxine, when we're presented with a lot of men that we have to deal with face-to-face, client-facing. And knowing how to handle that situation, knowing how to communicate in that situation. You know, just the stereotype of, oh, women, they're just hyper emotional, and, you know, that B word, we get that label quite a bit when we are passionate about something, and when we do speak up about something, when there is, you know, what they would deem as emotion backing it. And I think it's really important to find a really good way to reflect on those ways that we communicate, what drives our decisions, what drives our responses, our reactions to things. And there's one thing I always like to say is I don't react, I respond. And whether that means I respond to the email in 10 minutes or the next day, sometimes that requires an email that says, I'm going to review this email, and I'm going to take some time to let that resonate with me a little bit, and I'll get back to you. And I give a hard deadline for when I'm going to respond to that, because sometimes I do need a second to step away, or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever that may be. And I think that is I think it's important for everybody to do. You know, I know we talk about a lot about women in this role, but I think it goes right across the board for everybody. But I think that's in our nature a little bit more as well, is that, you know, that self-reflection and taking a step away. And, you know, we have so much information at our fingertips nowadays to learn how to do that and take those necessary steps, and to see within and to address those things that maybe were flaws or faults before, but we are doing something about it.
No, I like that. It's so true. Maxine, how has that played a factor in your career, moving up within the company too?
Yeah, I think when it comes to recognizing like the different skills that we bring into, and even the people that I look up to, I think it's important to recognize that they do have their own skill set. And I don't think that skills are necessarily dominated by masculine and feminine, or who, you know, what a woman is supposed to be and what a man is supposed to be. I think we're in a time and age where a lot of that is changing, where we're seeing these roles change, and we're allowing for that change to happen. It's not always going to be quick. You know, we're still learning and growing, and there's, you know, still some speed bumps along the way. But, you know, even in my own career, a lot of the people that I look up to and that I've had as role models were men. But the great thing about that is that I can still take the skills and the lessons that they've been teaching me and take that for my own, and kind of pass that on in a way that represents authentically who I am. You know, like we have been talking about, like there's different ways to be a leader, there's different ways to teach. And I think that's kind of what that is taking on those skills regardless of who they come from, and using them in a way that work best for us. You know, they may not necessarily be the same way that the next person would use them, but they work for us as women, you know.
Maxine, it's funny. It's one of my interview questions when I interview supervisors, is I say, take all of your past leaders and tell me a trait or a characteristic of them that you want to instill on like your future leadership. So it's funny you say that. Like we take what our leaders give us, but you know, everyone has pros and cons. So I find that question, it always brings a smile on the candidate's face, because they're obviously talking about somebody that they looked up to. So you just kind of reminded me of that.
And Shannon, I'm going to ask you, how has becoming a mother, you're a new mom, how has that changed or played a role in your career? And I guess, has it changed anything for you?
Oh, definitely. Definitely has changed my availability a little bit. Like I'm 24/7 available. All my team knows that. Everybody texts, but I really try and take that evening time back to family time. And it's made a difference. You know, I feel like my husband and I, at the start of the week, we got to have a conversation of where I am, where he is, how far, you know, because daycares, it felt like they kind of restricted their hours a little bit, or at least in my region anyways. For COVID to clean more. And then, so they were closing earlier. So now we have to really consider that wherever we are. I live farther from our office. I'm not the farthest, surprisingly, but I live quite a ways from our office and my site. So I'm at minimum an hour away to getting home to pick up my son. So yeah, it's definitely changed. I feel like in my leadership style, a lot more empathy and patience. It's definitely changed that I feel like I take those breaths a lot more. Whereas I get a little bit worked up, and maybe, you know, Simone kind of mentioned it, you take that time and really digest what that email might be, or something that previously you might get a little flustered about. And I feel like I worked at Mach 1000, like I just ran at one pace and that was it. And everyone needed to kind of catch up to my pace, and that's how I went. So I found I've adapted and really understanding that everybody is different, and really looking at the team. So yeah, parenting's definitely changed who I am at work. So far I'm told it's good, but who knows? Let's see what another one does down the line.
Right. What about you, Simone? Has it, I mean, your girls are teenagers right now?
Yes, absolutely. I pick my battles, and I apply the same thing in the workplace. Pick your battles. You know, there's some things worth diving into, taking personal, and then there's other things that you can just let roll off. And let me tell you, teenage girls, whew, I don't remember being that bad.
So
I don't think we all. Yeah, the hormones are pretty intense, but yeah, it has. I think patience is for one. It gives you a whole new perspective. Also, just the questions that they ask. Sometimes I'm just like, "Are you okay? Like, is your brain functioning?" But then once again, you can apply that to the workplace, because you're going to get asked questions. I get asked this so much, especially in my role. Oh, I'm going to ask a stupid question. I try to reiterate to everybody. I'm like, no question is a stupid question. There's only dumb answers. So I encourage them. I said, even if you've asked me 5 times, ask me again. I would rather you ask me than to not. And then, you know, there's a horrible, you know, error that occurs from it. Just ask the question. And it's the same thing with my girls at home. You know, ask me, communicate, be open, because if something bad really happens, we can't retract, like we can't move backwards. We can't rewind or anything like that. This isn't a PVR. This isn't a VCR. I don't even know if they know what that is.
I was going to say, I don't know who that is anymore.
But we can't go back. We can only go forward from that. And we either clean up a disaster and of course there's going to be errors. There's going to be mistakes, which is understandable, which allows you to once again just kind of take that with with some ease and understand there is a way to recover from that and get back on our 2 feet. So it does. I think it helps significantly. And then Maxine, I don't know if you have any children or how old you are or anything like that, or if that's a plan in the future for you. But I know for me, I just turned 40 in November, and having 2 teenage daughters, then it's like I'm approaching that age where it's like either, I have another or that's it. We close up shop, and I'm like, yo, these eggs are viable. Okay? Like I should maybe use them.
Yeah.
But then there's the concerns, like you get to a certain place in your career and it really does. It weighs on you. And I absolutely hate it. I don't think it's fair. I don't think this pressure should be put on us to say, because of course, sure, there's labor laws and you can't take my job away, but everybody knows they're replaceable. Mm-hmm. I like to think that I'm not, because I'm not, but at the same time, my job is, and any excuse can be created, or, when you really think of it, when you boil it down, you're like, oh, we just don't have, that spot really available anymore. You can come back for 2 weeks and then all of a sudden, we're going to let you go. And it's like, there's little things like that really just weigh on me. And what are they going to think when I say, oh, I'm pregnant? Of course she's pregnant. What else is she going to do? Now she's going to go take off, 8 months, 12 months, 18 months? Like how long is she going to be off for? Now we have to cover for that. Like it's this stress. It is such a stress. And I'm like, that stress is not good for a growing baby. So what do we do? I think that's the one thing that is, as a woman and approaching and thinking about that. And yeah, I don't know, maybe you ladies can share your thoughts on that, because I'm just, I think I've just been consumed by male leadership and assuming what goes on in their minds.
Yeah, I think about it a lot. I don't have kids of my own, but I would hope to have kids one day. And I think that the biggest skill that we can kind of use in order to help ourselves and other people is empathy. I think the biggest thing is like realizing that we're more than our job. We're people. We sit behind a desk, and I know sometimes it can be very anonymous, where we just see a name on the end of an email and we're like, okay, yeah, I talk to you every other day, but you don't actually know this person. And I think sometimes that can get away from us a lot. Just listening to your stories, like both of you guys and all of you talking about the thoughts that go on. I'm like, oh my goodness, like I have those thoughts. I think all the time. I was like, I'm going to have to deal with that at some point. And realizing how much pressure we put on ourselves of like, trying to figure out, oh, how does this person feel about me? And, my job is replaceable, but I'm really good at it. I enjoy it. And I like all these things, but you kind of have to find that balance. And I find the biggest thing that we can kind of take away from that, even being on the other side of it, of like, if somebody were to leave and you're like, dang, I got to pick up all this extra work, so that someone can, fill that role. I think the biggest thing is realizing that, having patience and empathy for ourselves, and in understanding that, something amazing that we can do is grow another human. And, they end up growing up to be their own individuals, sometimes to our dismay as teenagers. But it's fantastic. It's a beautiful thing. And I think that's the biggest thing, is realizing that we're not the only ones going through this, that we're not the only ones having these thoughts, is going to be the biggest support. And I think it's not talked about enough, because I think everybody's so worried about it affecting their job. And they're like, I can still do my job and be a full-time mother. That's another full-time job. I have friends that have kids, and I can see how much they go through on a daily basis. And I think that's one of the key takeaways that I'm listening from this conversation is, sometimes it's good just to talk about things. It can be such a hush-hush topic where everyone's like, oh, do we really want to talk about it? Because, there's so many implications around that. And I'm like,
envision going up to my boss being like, so I'm thinking about,
yeah.
occupying my uterus.
Yeah. They'd be like, we don't want to talk about that right now.
Exactly. I think that's why it's so important to have women in these senior roles in leadership. Shannon, what about you? Because you recently came, you recently, gave birth and came back. Did you have any of those thoughts that I was talking about before?
I was definitely nervous. I'm obviously in the contract management role, so I love my clients. And I was so scared of leaving, and that whoever potentially covered like my sites, what if my clients like them better and that they're not going to come, I'm going to come back and I'm not going to be able to come into work and it be the same, like at least what I knew. I was going to have to come back and not only be juggling like the new responsibility of parenting and working, but also like learning a whole new site, new teams and everything like that. Obviously there's turnover, but I was fortunate that when I came back, my clients did want me back, and we were able to kind of transition slowly. I had managers while I was like off on mat leave, like call me and ask my opinion on something or like check in. And, it made me feel like I was still part of that. Some people be like, I don't want to call, but I felt like I was missed. So that was kind of cool to have that. But yeah, I was totally stressed initially when I went off that like everything was going to change when I came back. So I was very fortunate with the leaders here that wasn't a thought at all. And they were just, please tell me you're taking 12 months and not 18 was pretty the biggest. Like, as soon as I said 12, they're like, okay, all right, we can do it.
Okay. So motherhood is obviously a challenge. What would each of you say is one of your biggest challenges that you face throughout your career or that you face right now, or that you think, I guess, women just in the industry face in general?
I don't really see them as challenges. I see them as incentive, encouragement. And what I'm referring to when I say that are things like, sexism, misogyny. It just fires me up. It fuels me more so than anything. And it's unbelievable. Like my mind is blown whenever I encounter things like that, where, a client or an individual that won't communicate directly with you because you're a woman. But I mean, at first you think it. And then you try to test it and you're like, why won't this person communicate with me? They'll go all the way around fully knowing that they need to come to me, but they'll refuse. And it's just wild. So to me, it's just fire. It's just fire under my butt to, find ways around it. Now, it's such a supportive team here within Paladin on inclusivity when it comes to all of these, topics and I think they're supporting if ever that were to be brought forward and acknowledged. And of course, that is a huge claim to make something like that, right? But they're always supportive in regards to that. So I'm really appreciative of that. But like I said, that's what I mean by I find it to be more of an, incentive and encouragement, and really lights a fire under my butt is because it pushes me outside of my comfort zone, pushes me to find ways of making it work. And so, yes, it's still a challenge, but, I feel like if I look at it as a challenge, then I have to overcome that challenge. And I want to look at it as just, it's just a shift in my thinking. That's all. Yeah. No, otherwise I feel really weighed down. And if I feel really weighed down by these things, and it, it kind of manifests itself, and I'm not getting anywhere. I'm not progressing. So when I look at it and I shift my perspective on it, then it that manifests itself as well into a completely different light, right? So it's how we speak to ourselves and whatnot.
No, that's good. It's a good reminder too, to even just look at the situation differently than, rather than saying, oh, it's like you said, a challenge or something negative. It's not. It's something we can learn from or grow from, and that type of thing. What about you, Maxine?
Yeah, I was thinking about this and I was trying to come up with something, and I think that the biggest challenge that maybe I even give to myself is trying to stay up to date in the security field that's always changing. There's always new information out there. It's one of those fields that you constantly have to keep up with the newest innovations, the new ideas, and I find that especially it's hard because I kind of put the pressure on myself when I am interacting with, say, clients or even the community or the public, that I'm like, the first things that they see about me is, I'm a woman, I'm a woman of color, I might be younger than them. And so sometimes I feel like I almost anticipate these prejudices being there when I am interacting with certain people. And I realize that the biggest thing and the best thing that I can do for myself is be a professional in my field. Go in with as much information as I can so that I can address the situation as best as possible, because that's the only thing that I'm there for. I'm not there because I'm a woman. I'm not there because I'm a woman of color. Sometimes it may help in a certain situation if we're dealing with somebody that needs to relate to somebody that, says like, I'm a person of color, like, I need someone to talk to that understands what I've gone through, or that might understand what I've gone through. But that was my biggest challenge, is understanding that, sometimes I put this pressure of these prejudices on myself, but also I want to go into a situation being the most knowledgeable about whatever's happening, or the field that I'm working in, or the client that I'm working with. I don't want to go in and feel like I'm the only one in the room that doesn't know what's going on. So I think that would be my biggest challenge, is being still quite young in my career, and balancing taking in the information and the knowledge that professionals have that have been working in this industry longer than I have, as well as doing that own research for myself.
I think for all of us, I think the bottom line is we want to know, and we want everybody else to know that we're the best person for that role. Not we were hired because we're women, we're hired because we're a minority, a person of color. I'm just I'm sick and tired of it. I'm just I'm just the best person for the job. Can you accept that? And it is a huge topic, right? Diversity within the workplace and inclusion and all these things. It's of course we get it. And of course it's extremely important, but you need to separate the fact that we still have a job to do. And at the end of the day, we're the best person for the job. I wasn't picked because I'm of mixed race. I wasn't picked because I'm a woman. I sure as hell hope I wasn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's it. And I think we need to have peace with that. We need to make peace with that. And that is a huge challenge, I think, in itself, of just overcoming that thought process of, was I picked for this role because of what I'm capable of doing?
That was something I kind of wrote down that I wanted to agree with, just making sure it's, I've worked my butt off to get where I am, and it's not because of anything to do with my background or anything like that, or who I am. That's got me there. It's that I've produced the hard work. I've worked my butt off for over the years. I can remember being told that I might need to look at a different career path because of where I was way back in Paladin. And it wasn't because of my gender, it was just my experience. And I was going to have to take a step back. And I feel like I've worked really hard to get where I am. And I look at anybody in the office and same thing, if you've worked hard and you continue to push forth, I think a lot of people hit a COVID slump, and you could really tell the hard workers in that time who kept pushing forward and producing the work and helping others. It wasn't just, let me deal with mine. They were helping each other, checking in, we had people scheduling Teams calls just to have a social hour because, some of our team, they were single, they're home alone, and they didn't have anything that was keeping them sane. So I really look at those people and still remember them for really stepping outside of just even the workload to carry extra and really caring about the team. So those are highlights to me.
Well, thank you so much, ladies, for joining us. You gave us so much to unpack, so many takeaways from this. I really appreciate all your perspectives and, your skills and your pieces of advice. And I know that it'll go a long way to help other women in the workforce, and even just others listening to the podcast that, may have similar challenges. So thank you so much.
Thank you
for having us.